All right. Kaplan's keys to the ACT. So when I say Kaplan, did Mr. Coker talk to you about Kaplan or Princeton? Okay, so real quick, I'm going to show you. We have two books that we teach from. One is called the Princeton Review, and that's from Princeton University. Okay. The other one is called Kaplan. 90% of what I do comes from Kaplan. I do some stuff from Princeton, but most of it as far as strategies and stuff, still align with Kaplan. These are the resources we use. I don't use the books anymore, just because everything I've done, I've made copies for you to be able to utilize. But when I say Kaplan, that's what I'm referring to. First thing, math, 60 questions, 60 minutes. Okay. There are 4 concepts, okay, 4 concepts. First one, look for the quickest way to solve problems, okay? Be creative. Be a creative thinker. Oh, let me tell you this also. Your final exam, did Mr. Coker talk to you about your final exam? The group project videos, that's your final exam. Every class will have you'll have to do a video over the strategies for a certain section of the test. You'll do those in groups. How many of you have already made a video at some point during school? Just a couple of you? That's it?
Like for a project?
Like a project or something. Oh, okay. That's what I meant. Not like, Macy's a star in a video or a movie or something. Just a project video. So, you'll have to select. So if you choose math, these are the strategies that you've got to put in the video. If you choose to do general strategies, the ones that he went over with you, or the English, you pick a certain topic and you and your group do a video to present those concepts. Okay? So if you choose math, this is what you would do. So creative thinking. This ties to that last problem we did on the jump start. Right? Did I use a formula? Did I do any math? I just thought creatively. Here's the Chromebook. If I open it up, did it change the area? No, the area stayed the same. Okay? Thinking outside the box. Very, very important. Number 2, use your answer choices to get the correct answers. This is what I called yesterday when we labeled plug and chug. Plug and chug. I'm sure most of you have done this. How many of you have taken an answer choice, plugged it in the problem, and tried to see if it worked? Yes? Okay. Great strategy to use on the ACT for the math. Number 3, it's called the 2-pass plan. Calculator and math problems first. You're going to take the test. You're going to go through the first pass. You're going to do all the calculator and math problems. What do I mean by math problems? All the problems you know how to do the math on. On the second pass, then you're going to do all the hard problems, the ones where you use strategies to try to figure out answers. Okay. There are 60 questions. We already said most everybody is not going to know how to do all 60 questions. So first time, go through, do all the stuff you know. Second time through, come back and try to do other alternative strategies. And then lastly, know how to use the calculator. And I just talked about, I'll give you some tutorial videos, put those in your Google Classroom, so those will be available to you to reference. Okay. Can't cover everything on the calculator, but I can give you a lot of the basics that'll help you possibly. Okay. What should you be open to? Be open to clever and original solution methods. Okay, this is not a math class. You don't have to do the problems like you would in your math class or like your teacher would. I'm sure in Algebra 2 you have to show all your steps. You got to put all that stuff in there, all that kind of stuff. That is not the case in here. In here, it's about thinking outside the box a lot of times. Find the easiest and most efficient method of solving. Now, again, the most efficient method is do the math, but that doesn't mean you have to show every step. Also, 3 positive aspects. First, it is graded and curved. Okay, how does that work? How does graded and curved work? What did we say is kind of that benchmark score we're looking for? 21. How many questions do you have to get right to get a 21 on the math, typically? Does anybody know? 30. Half of them. So think about in your math class. 30 out of 60 is what percent? 50. If you made a 50 on the test in your math class, would that be good? No, that's a failing grade. But on the ACT, that's a pretty good score. That's a 21. Okay? It is curved. It's not graded like you are academically in school. So understand that. If we went into our math class on a whatever days you all test, and your thought process was, I only have to get a 50 to get a C. Most of you would probably feel pretty confident about it. That's the same way you need to think about the ACT. You don't need to be intimidated by it, okay? It is curved. Second, there are a wide spread of skills tested. So there's going to be stuff on there you know. There's going to be stuff on there you don't know. That's okay. And then thirdly, 2 out of 3 is correct. That's a great score. Okay, so what's 2 out of 3 percentage-wise? 66, 67, right? That's still a failing grade in your math class. But on the ACT, if you get 2 out of 3 correct, you're looking at probably like a 28 on the ACT math. That is really good. So again, have this positive mindset. Your mindset going into the ACT is such a critical thing. Three strategies for problem solving. First, don't be obedient. Okay, what's that mean? Be fast, use a variety of methods, okay, and don't worry about every single step. This is hard for honor students because a lot of times they want to do everything very meticulous, very detailed. You got a time test in front of you, 60 questions, 60 minutes, 1 minute a question on average. You got to be efficient. You've got to be efficient. Now, that doesn't mean rush, but it also doesn't mean to just dawdle, if y'all know what that word means. Second, this is a strategy we'll review tomorrow. This is one most of you probably have not done. Pick numbers. Substitute numbers in for variables to make the problem more concrete. Make it something maybe that allows you to see what is or possibly what are not the solutions. Again, this is not plug and chug. This is different. This is not plugging the answers in. It's plugging values in. I will go ahead and say, typically when we do this one, there are 2 values we never use. What do you think those are? What value would you think not to plug into a problem? 0, because typically 0 is just going to make everything else 0. 0 we don't usually use, and then 1. We usually don't use the number 1, just because a lot of times it won't separate answers for us. It won't give us a more concrete understanding. So, but we still try to use easy numbers, but we try to avoid 0 and 1. And then thirdly, Kaplan calls it back solve. I call it plug and chug. Take your answers, plug it in the problem, and work backwards to try to figure out which one's the solution. Next, what are 4 expert tutor tips, okay? So I've given you tips here, strategies. These expert tutor tips, these are, let's take it a step further, okay? So for example, When you do plug and chug, always start with the middle number answer, okay? How many answer choices are there for each question on the math test? Do y'all remember? 5. A, B, C, D, E, or F, G, H, J, K. It always starts with the middle one. And the reason is, I don't know if y'all paid attention to this or not on the test, but on the math test, all your answer choices are in sequential order. They go from least to greatest or greatest to least. So if you're doing plug and chug, if you start with the middle one and you plug it in and you notice it's too big, the other 2 answer choices that are bigger than that are automatically eliminated. It saves you time. Okay? And again, we'll look at how that is implemented tomorrow when we look at your diagnostic test. Number 2, you only get points for the correct answer and not how you work the problem. They're not going to look at your work. They don't care. All they're going to grade is your Scantron, which is why it's very important that you mark your test. I tell students it's okay to skip, but if you skip, mark your Scantron and your test. That way you know you're not off on your Scantron. But the other part of that is it's critical that you never, ever, ever, ever leave an answer what? Blank. You're going to get points for how many you get correct. So don't leave one blank. At least guess, okay? Go with your letter of the day, whatever that may be. We're going to talk about that as well. Don't depend solely on the calculator. It's a tool. The calculator is not going to help you, quote unquote, pass the test. It's going to help you. Now, on the other hand, what if you don't have a calculator to the test? Is that detrimental? Absolutely. That will hurt you. You need a calculator. I would even go as far as to say this. If you don't have your own calculator, if you are borrowing someone else's, you need to always reset it. This is going to be one of the tutorial videos I show you. If they've got games and stuff on it, it's not going to delete the games. But what it does is it gets rid of all the work they've done prior to it that could cause you to mess up on the test. But make sure you have a calculator. And then number 4, be a thinker, not a number cruncher, okay? Use common sense. Use common sense. A lot of times, common sense, you're just going to eliminate some answers. Okay, think logically about the problem and which answers make sense. Okay. So, what's our plan? What's Kaplan's 3-step plan? First, understand the problem. Don't even worry about what answers you have.
Are we in Coker today? Okay, thank you.
Did you bring your contract? You still having that? Okay, all right. Make sure you get that. Make sure you understand the problem. Don't look at the answers until you've read the problem, understand what it's asking. Number 2, analyze the problem. Have a plan of attack. Okay, what's your plan of attack? Am I going to do the math? Well, I don't know how to do the math, okay? Can I use an alternative strategy? And Mr. Thomas is going to teach me. Possibly. Can I use the calculator? Maybe. What if I can't do any of those? Do I have my letter of the day I'm going to pick? Okay, whatever it is, make sure you've got some way to think about this is how I'm going to answer it. So there are our choices. Use your math skills. When do you do that? The first pass. When you're going through the test the first time, if you know how to do the math, do it. On the second pass, alternative strategies. Pick numbers to put in the problem or do plug and chug. If neither of those work, then we're to our letter of the day and we just guess. We don't leave it blank. Those are your plans of attack. And this is going to vary for every person. Every person's going to be different here. And again, a lot of that's going to be based on what math you're currently in, what math you have taken, and that sort of thing. And then thirdly, in the plan, select the answer. Get your own answer first, then look at the answer choices and see if it's there. Now, step 3, what is the only one of these plans of attack where this does not apply? Where you wait to the end to look at the answers. Plug and chug, because you got to look at the answers to figure out which ones you're going to plug in. So yeah, otherwise work it out, get your answer, see if your answer choice is there. Okay, why do we skip? 1, you don't know the math. So again, on the first pass, you're looking for all the problems you know how to do the math and or use the calculator. So if you don't know how to use the calculator for it or you don't know how to do the math, then skip it. Again, mark it on your Scantron and on your test booklet. Number 2, you don't see how to solve it. Maybe you know the math, maybe you understand it, but you're not real sure how to get there. Or maybe it's a case where, okay, I know I need to use a formula here, I just don't know the formula. I don't know what the formula, I can't remember what the formula is. Skip it. Okay, don't sit there and just stare at it and think that you're going to have some epiphany. Okay, skip it. And then if you spent more than a minute trying to solve it, if you sit there and you're plugging away at a problem and you're just kind of grinding your wheels and you're not going anywhere, skip it. Don't invest all that extra time in it. Okay, remember, we got to be fast and efficient. Don't waste your time. Okay, so what's our 2-pass plan? First pass. Do all the problems you understand. You know the math. That's going to vary, 30 to 45 minutes. Why is that going to vary? It's all dependent on how much math you've taken and what you know to do. The further along you are in your math courses, probably the more problems you're going to know how to work. So you may take more time. You may take the 45 minutes. Others who have not had as many math classes, you may only take 30 minutes and then you're done doing all the math you know. On the second pass, okay, go back, look at all the problems you've not answered, implement strategies. Maybe something you did in another problem helps you realize how to do a previous one. And then at the end, if nothing else, you're going to guess. Now, let me talk about letter of the day. Because one thing about the math section that's different than the other tests, the math is what we call evenly distributed. So if you've got A, B, C, D, and E as answer choices, there are 60 questions. If it is evenly distributed, that means there are 12 A's, 12 B's, 12 C's, 12 D's, and 12 E's. This will not happen on pretty much any other test. But on the math, it is very, very close. Like sometimes there will be 11, 13, but this is typically the case. So let's say we go through and we do the test and we do all the math that we know how to do. We haven't answered all 60 questions, but let's say I go through, they say 5-minute call, I count, and here's how I have my answers. What's going to be my letter of the day here? C, because I've only answered 3 with C. If it's an even distribution, if they're all 12, I'm still going to miss some of these, right? But in theory, how many of these could I get right? 9 more just by guessing C. Now, I'm guessing C. Why? Because that's the fewest number I answered. Does everybody follow what I'm telling you? So, this is also a strategy for letter of the day. It's not just random. It's actually thinking it through.